When nations of the world are called to travel to Jerusalem, this is the middle of the three pilgrim festivals. Let me see, it's 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30. In about half an hour, which will be 3 in the morning, Jews from all over Jerusalem will begin walking from wherever they are down towards the Kotel, toward the western wall. We'll talk maybe a little bit about later, but there's several customs around Shavuot, and one of the customs, and I thought about it while I was planning some things today, and I thought, gee, maybe some year we'll have to do this, but one of the customs in the Jewish community around the world is to stay up all night studying Torah.
Yes. I can do that.
I knew you could.
I can do that.
I knew there were some of you that would say, wow, great, let's just bring the Mishli and read through it all night, and they just study all night. By the way, that comes from a part of the oral tradition, the legend that says that on the day when the commandments were being given at Mount Sinai, the people slept in late. I know none of you have ever done that, and God had to wake them up, and so this is like kind of in payment of the fact that their forefathers had to be woken up, that they stay up all night studying Torah. Shavuot is the day of Pentecost. It is the 50th day counting the Omer. It is the celebration of when Torah was given at Mount Sinai, and it is a celebration for us as believers in Yeshua of the day of Pentecost when the Holy Spirit was released into the life of the church. And one of the traditions of Shavuot is the reading of the entire book of Ruth. In addition to that, they also encourage everyone to go to their synagogues on the daytime of Shavuot to hear the reading of the Ten Commandments representing the Torah itself. And so there's a lot of great customs that go around this time. But in Jerusalem, at 3 o'clock in the morning, all those people that are staying up studying everything, they all decide it's time to take a break. I mean, they ate a supper and then they're up there discussing Torah and reading it. And from all over the neighborhoods, and they start coming out of their doors and everything. And by the thousands, they make their way down to the Kotel at 3 in the morning. It's like, oh man, we scheduled our tour we ended our tour 1 week too early. We got to, next year we're just going to go there for 3 months. We'll get Passover, we'll get Shavuot, we'll just get the whole thing all together. My friend Moshe Kopensky sends out a newsletter, and he always has in it an article that he writes. And this was an interesting one. It's about the book of Ruth and the letter Vav. There is a simple fact about the book of Ruth that we read on the holiday of Shavuot that delivers a powerful message. As Rav Shmuel Eliyahu points out on his Sabbath Bamidbar lesson, almost every verse in the book of Ruth begins with the letter Vav. It's interesting. Almost every verse in the book of Ruth in Hebrew begins with the letter Vav. The 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Vav. When that letter is placed at the beginning of a verse or a word, it carries the meaning of the word and. It's called Vav HaKabar, or the connecting Vav. The ancient mystics, on the other hand, called this letter At HaEmet, the letter of truth. Why would that be? We're living in a world, says Moshe, we're living in a world of separation and disunity. Does this sound like my message from this past Sabbath? I mean, amazing. We're living in a world of separations and disunity, what the mystics call olam de peroda. It is a world wherein every event is viewed separated from the events that precede it and the events that immediately follow. It is a world where what is more important than what was and what is meant to be. It is a world that has lost any sense of context and poetry. My, does that describe our world today It is what is now. It's not what was yesterday. It's not what is tomorrow. It's just the moment. The tabernacle in the desert was meant to help offer an anchor and beacon. In the midst of Moshe's stocktaking of all the items that were gathered for the building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, we read this, quote, "And of the remaining 1,775 shekels, he made vavim." Do you hear the word vav in that? V-A-V. He made vavim, V-A-V-I-M, which are hooks, for the pillars, and overlaid their capitals and made fillets for them. The Mishkan that was created in the desert was meant to be a microcosm of the spiritual reality in the world. It would become a portable Mount Sinai until God's house would be built on Abraham's Mount Moriah. Every artifact and raw material for the building of that Mishkan was donated by people moved by an inner call and passion. Every individual item was a magnificent and radiant entity on its own merits, and yet remained unimportant until the whole structure came together. It was those vavim, plural of vav, that connected and held the whole structure of the Mishkan in place. That is true of the letter vav that began so many verses in the Tanakh. The letter vav connects words, verses, and messages. The letter vav gives the flow of thoughts, a history, and continuity. When we relearn context and connect all the events and visions that seem so randomly placed before us, we begin to find direction and purpose. Let me repeat that sentence that Moshe wrote there. When we relearn context, think about your own life. All the things that have happened in your life, when we relearn context and connect all the events and visions that seem so randomly placed before us, we begin again to find direction and purpose. Only then do we find truth, and that is why the letter is called the letter of truth. The book of Ruth is about reconnecting events. The well-meaning but flawed random events that began with Lot and his daughters and Yehuda and his daughter-in-law Tamar culminated with Ruth and Boaz. The book of Ruth, which is a book of loving kindness, brought all those pieces together in order to create a King David. In a world of ever-increasing darkness and confusion, the connecting power of the letter Vav is critical to maintain the structure of faith and purpose. The story of Ruth and its theme of loving kindness and connecting events and people will provide that direction. The rest of history will continue to connect King David to the final redemption, where in that time all will be clear and all will be made known. So says Moshe Kopensky, and I got